Now, the reality is that in CPS, 60% of the schools don't have any recess. You work in Springfield, so as the next mayor of Chicago, what is your plan to continue working with Springfield to make sure that, 60% of Chicago schools have recess?
Well, the reason we don't have recess is because we went to closed campuses in many instances and because of the safety concerns. And so we have to deal with public safety within our neighborhoods. We can't have our kids running around in the schoolyard if there's gang activity all around. It is dangerous. And so how do you deal with that? You have to deal with what's happening in the neighborhoods. A school can't be an island and ignore everything around it. And there are some principals who say, well, that's happening outside. That's not my responsibility. Well, it is their responsibility. A principal and teachers have to assume responsibility for what is happening in the lives of those children outside the school. We need to address that issue and many more. And so when Michelle Obama says we need to have active kids, well, how are they going to be active? Where? If you're keeping them at home because of safety concerns or other concerns, how are they going to be active? And then if they're at school and it's a closed campus and there's no room to move, we have 160 schools, elementary schools in the city of Chicago that don't have libraries. 160 schools in this day and age. And we wouldn't have known that if it hadn't been for the activism of the parents at Whittier School who decided to take action and decided to challenge the system. And that's what we need more of. We need parents who are willing to challenge the system and say, this is about not just our school, it's about our neighborhoods. Because we need to free up that space in our neighborhoods so children can run, so children can ride their bikes, so children can play baseball, so they can play in the schoolyard, so they can play in other parts in the park nearby and not be afraid. So the parent patrols are very important. When you establish a parent patrol, you're creating space. Safe space. And I know I was part of evaluating the proposals for safe passage with the Chicago Public Schools. We need to do more of that. Some of those activities have been funded with the federal stimulus bill, and that money runs out this year. And so we have to figure out a way of coming up with the funding to make sure that we continue to make our schools safe in and around the schools. That safety zone, if you will, needs to be not just the school inside the walls, it needs to be out in the neighborhoods. And that's how we're going to provide opportunities for physical activities so that at community-based organizations, whether it's an agency, a Boys and Girls Club, or other kinds of, or a park district, there has to be activity. You ever go into a park district field house and see nothing happening? Have you ever experienced that? That happens. And then you go into some others, and then the place is jumping. Those places should be jumping with activities year-round, not just during the summer when you pay bucks to send your child to summer camp, but all year in the park district, which means that there ought to be that partnership with the school and the park district, and the programming that needs to happen needs to be planned in conjunction with the park district. We shouldn't have one system, the park district, operating separately. There should be a partnership, and community-based organizations can help facilitate that in terms of making sure that they are partners in the process of running those community learning centers after school at all the schools, and then kids can be taken over to the park district for other kinds of activities. This is not anything new. We've done this in years ago. We used to do a lot of this. We got away from it. Why? Because of safety concerns. So we need to deal with that. The other reason we got away from it was because of budgetary concerns. But we're going to have to look in the budget, and we're going to have to make this a priority, because it's not just about physical health that comes by way of activity and good nutrition. It's also about mental health and children's mental health and their own emotional development, which is just as important. To build up a child's self-esteem, they need to be a part of activity, movement, where they feel that they excel. Because you can't excel in every area. Certainly you have the potential to excel in every area, but children need an opportunity to explore and to get into what it is that they like, what they enjoy, because that's what brings joy to their lives. And when there's joy in a child's life, there's self-esteem. A child feels better, and a child with good self-esteem grows into a responsible adult.